And happy Wednesday, world. How are you today? It is a beautiful day to talk about the Seahawks. Zeb, how's it going, my friend?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I got some unfortunate news that Ross is not able to join us today. He was planning on being here, but he had a last thing that came up, so wasn't able to join us. So bummed that he can't talk about the draft and the podcast and all that today. But I'm happy
Yeah.
you're here.
And likewise, I'm happy you're here. If we can't have Ross, at least we have each other.
Right? We did have Maddie from Inside the Pylon scheduled to join us again, but due to the time difference, maybe he just pulled too much of an all-nighter and passed out beyond hours. Hopefully he's safe. Maddie, if you're waking up, join us if you can. If not, we'll have you in for another time. We know
If
we
you're
do
not
know.
safe, please send out some sort of a distress signal so that somebody can come and find you.
Yeah, we won't be able to help. I don't know what the 911 version is in the UK, but hopefully someone does know, and he's got people that will check in on him, right?
I sure hope so.
Yeah. But I am Sam, and with me is Zeb. Ross isn't here today, but we are the Seahawks FanTable podcast. We are rebranding ourselves today. Today we are the Shaquem FanTable podcast because he's kind of the talk of the town, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But we get this draft coming up, and the Seahawks completed their 2018 draft, and they did what everyone expected with their first round pick. They traded down just like we all assumed. But then they selected a running back, and the draft was highlighted by players that would help them in the run game. But as we said, the talk of the town is Shaquem Griffin, the one-handed twin brother of Seattle's 2017 third-round pick, Shaquill Griffin. The Griffin brothers are united, and tears of joy were flowing through the draft talk for days. Zeb, I don't know how you did the draft this year. We kind of talked about if things had changed, but let's really talk about how did you enjoy and how did you watch the draft this year?
Well, I took the day off on Thursday, and I went and watched it at a bar with mostly non-Seahawks fans. There was some Packers fans there, and some people who I couldn't really tell for sure what team they were rooting for. But for the first round, did that, and was surprised to see us actually make a pick and take a guy in the first round. So that was exciting. And then second round mostly didn't pay. I mean, I watched it online, like I had it streaming while I was working, but I wasn't really paying too much attention.
Right.
And then day three, it starts earlier. It's a weekend day, so I was home with my buddy David, and we watched that and prayed for us to take Mr. Griffin.
Yeah, this is the first year where I probably watched almost like zero TV or anything televised for the draft. I actually did almost everything exclusively off Twitter. So when they traded down from 18 to 27, that was no surprise at all. I was actually waiting in line, ready to watch the new Avengers movie, and right before the lights turned down and everyone's turning their phones off, it says Seahawks are on the clock, and they hadn't mentioned that they had traded away the pick, and then there in the first round, Rashad Penny out of San Diego State falls into my feed and says, "Oh, the Seahawks took a running back."
So you saw the pick before the movie started?
I saw the pick, and as soon as I saw the pick, I had a buddy from work text me, and it was like, "What's going on? Why did we take a running back?" Like, I don't know, but he's probably good. and then I put my phone on silent, watched the movie, thoroughly enjoyed it, and then he was like, my buddy kept texting me again, and I felt bad because he was like, "Dude, am I bugging you?" It's like, no. I was in a movie. Don't worry about it. I told him, I'm watching some highlights. I'm reading some news. I'm hearing good things. I'm liking what's happening so far. But yeah, that's essentially how I enjoyed all of the draft. And the same thing went for the third round pick, Rasheem Green. And then we took Will Disley, which I thought we would kind of lean towards the tight end, maybe a more blocking one. What's up, Saints? How's it going, man? And Will Dissly, I was like, okay, UW guy, first UW guy taken in a while, first USC Pete Carroll's ever taken in the draft. And then they took Shaquem, and I was just kind of floored. I was kind of hoping for it because I do think he's a quality player. I just didn't think it would happen just because like those stories are so rare,
Right.
But it was definitely a different experience doing everything through the draft off Twitter as opposed to actually watching video because there was no host like telling me that this was a good pick or a bad pick. It was mostly, Seahawks people that are responding to each pick. And, I don't know enough about all these college guys, so I don't really know who was good or bad. But it was definitely interesting to see there's a very, very big difference from the national perspective versus how stuff comes in through like more of a local, focalized support. I'm only looking at people that I want their opinions about football, not just like because they happen to be big people or big names.
Whose opinions do you tend to look to when you're on Twitter in particular?
I tend to go from just like more facts, so they're less about opinions, so they're more about facts. So Bob Condotta is a big one. I like Sean Michael Dugar from the PI. He's actually moving on to Seattle Atlantic, the magazine. So a lot of beat guys I like, a lot of radio guys, whether they're on 710 ESPN Seattle or if they're on 950 KJR. Most of the radio guys are a little bit more opinion based, but the beat guys, most of all of them are always factual. So I really enjoy listening to them and hearing what they have to say because they're not going to put in like their 2 cents of like this is a bad pick, this is a good pick. It's like, hey, this is who we picked, this is the information about it, and then I can kind of do that to kind of find my own way.
Yeah.
And I feel that's a little bit better because I don't want to go in being biased because. Honestly, we'll just jump to our topic number one because topic number one is exactly what I ran into an issue with, and it's will the running back position always be blasted when taken with the first round pick? Zeb, what do you think about that? I don't know. Were you in favor of a running back in the first round, or would you be against it if, like, even before Rashad Penny came across?
I mean, I think it's pretty silly, like how avidly against picking a running back in round one people tend to be. Like, obviously people let like a top 5 guy like Ezekiel Elliott or somebody like that. They usually they understand they don't blast that pick in particular. But then when you're talking about the second, third, fourth best running back in the draft, if somebody takes them in the first round, then people go apeshit over it. I think it's silly. If you're drafting from sort of a combination of, trying to fill holes or fill weaknesses, and then also taking kind of maybe the best guy available on your draft board, if it happens to be a running back, then do it. Why not? Like, I get when you're looking at pick value and that sort of thing, and you get really into the numbers about it. If you feel like you could wait till a later round to get somebody, fine. But, like, you never know what could happen. And if this is the guy you want, if the guy that you're targeting, and you want Rashad Penny at 27, take him. You never know what could happen at 28 or 29 or 30 or before your next pick. So I think as a principle, don't take a running back in round one. It's pretty stupid. It's kind of silly. I understand the thought, like if you really break it down, but to just blast it any time it happens doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
So I am a total hypocrite because the whole time all my friends at work are like, hey, what are we going to take? You think we should take a running back? I'm like, no. Taking a running back in the first round is the stupidest thing you could do because of value. And here we are. They take Rashad Penny. I watched like one highlight clip, and we talked about highlight clips last week. And like, I'm sold. I love this guy. And it's crazy because exactly what you said, the draft should be always about value. Are you getting value because when you draft earlier, you're supposed to be able to have a higher selection process. You're going to have more guys that you like. And as the draft goes on, it's more guys that are kind of the same. So you're kind of just like nitpicking, well, I like this guy one round higher, so I'm going to pick him before I pick this other guy because I think I can get him later. But as the draft kind of went on, and as reviews and talking heads started talking about, oh, well, Rashard Penny's a second round pick. They shouldn't have taken him in the first round. The whole time I'm thinking, you know what? I'm flipping the switch. Seattle doesn't have a second round pick. Who knows if they had someone that would have taken Penny, even if they were able to trade down into the second round pick. And then it was like, you know what? I'm just flipping a switch. I'm just purely defensive now. This is the best decision Seattle could have made by far. I like the pick. I maybe don't think the value is there, but I'm happy with who they got. But back to that question is like, I do think that teams will continue to get blasted. And the reason why I think teams will get blasted for taking a running back in the first round is that the odds of them being signed to a second contract is nearly zero at this point. The only running back that I can think of that has signed a contract in any level is Le'Veon Bell, and he's franchised, and he's kind of stuck in this limbo where he's playing on a one-year deal that he's going to get paid a lot of money, but he has no guarantees after this year. You know? Like, yeah. We haven't seen that occur anymore. You know, the running backs are treated as such a disposable position that teams aren't willing to hold on to a guy because they don't think that they're going to be worth it. You know, even though we're talking about a 26, 27-year-old football player who has a lot of years left in him, there's just not that value anymore.
Yeah, and that's a really good argument for pulling the trigger, even though it may seem like a bit of a reach. It's good. It's very similar to, like, you know, starting a rookie quarterback over a high-paid veteran. It's like, if you can get the value out of the guy while he's in his youth, and he can be, you know, a playmaker for your team. Like, you look at our roster, and you look at, we're picking at 27 now. This is the highest guy on our board. He's a running back. Could we trade back and maybe still get him? Could we hope that he would drop to our next pick? Possibly, maybe, but you don't know. And if you're looking at, okay, well, do we want to go into the season with Chris Carson as our number one guy, and you're comfortable with that, then maybe you skip on him. If you think, well, this guy probably would automatically improve the position for us, it's kind of a no-brainer to just go ahead and go for it. The 27th pick in round one is, for all intents and purposes, a second-round pick at that point anyway. So
right, and that's the other thing. It's silly that all these people say, oh, this guy is this round pick. There's not like a limitless number of picks that Seattle can say, like, oh, well, everyone's going to say that this guy's a second-round pick, and whoever raises their hand first gets him. It's the Seahawks had, at that point, the 27th pick, and then didn't pick again until like the 120th pick or whatever. It was like the 90-something pick. So it's like a gap of 70-some-odd picks that they would have to wait through before they even got to select someone.
Right.
So this idea that, like, oh, so-and-so could just get taken later, you know, it just doesn't work that way. That's not realistic. You can't just continually find a person that's willing to trade into a spot if they're not willing to move up, and you can't find someone that's willing to let you move down. So that's another thing that kind of bothered me. It's like, I was happy that Seattle was able to get an additional third round and sixth round pick in exchange for first and seventh. That was a great value. It allowed them to get Rasheem Green, which, you know, based upon what people are saying, he's kind of in a Michael Bennett mold. Obviously, Michael Bennett wasn't Michael Bennett his first year because he was released by the Seahawks.
Right.
But if that's something that we can groom, and, you know, in 2 to 3 years he is a Michael Bennett style player, that'll be a great value. So I think the problem is always going to be, drafts are sometimes not so much about who gets selected and when they get selected, but what do people want to see. People want to see, like, marquee positions go off the board. Like, no one's excited about, you know, some guard or tackle getting taken, or a defensive tackle. They want to see, like, the quarterback, the wide receiver, the corner, you know, the defensive end. And that's kind of the way the NFL is. It's the media based as opposed to what is the football base.
Exactly. And let's face it, if he goes out and runs for 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns, nobody's going to give a crap if you reached for him in the draft or not, right?
No, not at all. I kind of, I told this to Ross when we were chatting after the draft. I kind of wish he could actually play with a number 1 jersey because I would totally rock a number 1 Penny jersey.
Yeah.
Like you can
That
get
would be pretty tight.
you can get them on the team store right now, but it's not going to be his real number. And it's weird that the Seahawks haven't actually released all of the players' numbers yet, but they're selling Shaquem jerseys with 49, and technically you can be a linebacker and play under a 49. But
Now you can, yeah.
yeah, it's a weird jersey number. Basically, only numbers in the 40s that I think I would view as cool are, and this is for any position, 40, 44, and 47. Any other number I think is a weird number. Oh, what's up, JG? JG saying hi from the Twitch chat. JG, Maddie's down, so if you want to join us, you're welcome to join us. We could always use another voice.
If you're in the mood.
Yeah. But yeah. What do you think about jersey numbers? What number do you think Penny's going to get? Because 20 is taken right now by McKissick.
He'll probably get it from McKissick. I don't know if he wants it bad enough.
Yeah. Yeah, JG.
I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I don't really. Without looking at a list, I'm not even sure what's available. So.
Yeah, JG. Maddie's down again, so we're hoping he's safe. If not, we're going to tell him to send like a carrier pigeon or something. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about a little bit more of the draft. So, topic number 2: Are the Seahawks a better team after this draft? So, before we get into that, let's actually talk about all the draft picks they selected. So, in the first round, with the 27th pick, they traded back from 18, acquired a 3rd and 6th, and then with 27, they took Rashad Penny from San Diego State. They had the 76th pick from Green Bay. They traded back 3 spots with Pittsburgh, picked up another 7th rounder. They picked up Rasheem Green, defensive end from USC. Then in the 4th round, with their selection, they took Will Dissly, tight end from Washington. In the 5th round, they took Shaquem Griffin at the 141st pick. 5 picks later, they took Trey Flowers, a safety from Oklahoma State, who they're going to play at corner. Also in the 5th round, they traded up 7 spots and gave up a 7th round pick with Denver to take Michael Dixon, a punter from Texas, who's actually from Australia. Then the 5th round, they took a tackle from Ohio State, Jamarco Jones. 6th round, Jacob Martin, defensive end from Temple. And then they drafted the first quarterback since Russell Wilson, and Alex Magoo, quarterback from Florida International University. Magoo. Actually Magoo, which is an interesting name. But what is your take after this draft? Do you think that the Seahawks are a better team?
I mean, I have to believe they'll be better than they were going into the draft. I don't know that we're better than we were last season. Like, what specifically when you say better?
If you were to pick one aspect that this draft addressed, do you think that it did that? And specifically, it's kind of the running game. Do you think that the Seahawks, with this draft, addressed one of their biggest deficiencies of the running game?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that taking Penny and then taking Dissly, who's widely regarded as probably the best blocking tight end in the draft, yeah, I think it's a pretty obvious acknowledgement that the running game is going to be more of the focus this season. So I do believe that those two guys help us be a better running football team, and if that in turn makes us a more balanced team, puts less on Russell Wilson's shoulders, gives him the chance to not have to be the guy making the play every time, then yeah, I think it makes us a better, more balanced offensive football team. Yeah, a lot of after Dissly, a lot remains to be seen exactly what these guys are going to be able to contribute in their first season. It seems, though, like the punter, Dixon, is going to probably come in and be our punter, our starter. And if he's as advertised, it should be an upgrade at the position. Although obviously John Ryan's always been a favorite around here. And then Griffin, if he's the field tilter that they make him out to be, he should help fire up the defense and help some of the other guys. I guess if inspiration is what the defense needs to get back to the level we want to see them playing at, it seems like he's the guy that can provide that inspiration. So, all that said, we're a better team today than we were the night before the draft. Sure.
Okay. And it's kind of too broad of a question to kind of get the answer probably anyone is looking for it, so apologies in advance. But overall, I think the Seahawks are a better team after this draft because, one, they're addressing two areas in which they were severely lacking, which is special teams and their offense. The defense, I don't know if the defense is better after this draft because, these guys kind of look like projects. Shaquem, as exciting as he is, and we'll talk about him a little bit more later, he might not be a starter. He might be a situational guy. He might be a special teams guy. But offensively, I believe that everything that they selected offensively, and that is a running back, a tight end, and a tackle, that addresses and that is the focus saying, like, we are going back to what our roots are. And if you look at the guys they picked up as undrafted free agents, there's fullbacks in there, there's more offensive line people. So they are definitely addressing the team that they want to have. If that ends up being what they expect it to be, a 1,400-yard rusher, multiple touchdown kind of guy, that will be something I think a lot of people do not expect, but they want to see. And that's why this team would be better, because that's what they're building towards. Everyone can see very clearly of what they're trying to establish with those three positions. And I think that's a good thing. That makes them a better team, especially if you play that off the players they currently have. So that's a positive. People are talking about the tackle from Ohio State. He could potentially compete with Jermaine Ifedi right now for that right tackle position. I don't know if
hope so.
I don't know if he'll get it because we've seen historically it takes we've seen it take our players a long time to become really good. That was true with Britt, that was true with Unger beforehand, and that's with Tom Cable at the helm. So with Mike Solari, who knows what we'll see. So maybe we'll see a quicker transition, which would be great. But yeah, they're better. They're more complete. They have better competition, which is another big thing that I think Pete and John are trying to rebuild back towards. But I think the biggest thing is with this running back, with this tight end, the focus in the offseason, they've built towards having these players as the one to kind of fill in these final gaps. So I think that that's what they're going to do. The question is, will they succeed? That's something we'll see, once camp opens up and we see them play with pads and just see a little bit more information. But I think on paper, they're a better team. Are they better than the 9-7 team? And are they an immediate favorite for the division? That's, I think, a little bit hard to say because there's just so many unknowns still.
Right.
Did you pay attention to a lot of the other teams in the NFC West?
Not really. Not too much.
What about the Cardinals selecting Josh Rosen, the quarterback from UCLA?
I mean, I guess it's the right pick for them. I think it's the right thing for them to do. I don't know. Obviously, it remains to be seen whether that works out for them long term on the field, but I don't think they had much of a choice.
I think it's going to be a wasted pick. There's nothing about that guy that screams like he's going to be a quality quarterback in this league. He also can't stay healthy, which is...
I don't feel like any of the quarterbacks really... They're just not that inspiring.
I don't know. I'm down with Baker Mayfield. He's a cocky guy. He's all about winning. I think that's a positive. Sam Darnold, to me, he's kind of like low ceiling, low floor, low ceiling. But if you can get a starter out of that, that's a guy that potentially could play like 7-10 years and play at an okay plus level. And the fact that he's going to the Jets, it's like kind of the perfect like okay level quarterback place for him to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone on the NFC West had a particularly amazing draft. I wasn't really excited for what the Niners did. I think the Cardinals had their quarterback Josh Rosen. He's not going to be healthy, which is like the perfect quarterback for them to grab.
I was hearing that some of the other, without having the information in front of me, some of the NFC West teams went pretty heavy in the defensive backfield. Is that something that you'd say is true?
I didn't pay attention a lot because, like I said, it was just mostly Twitter feeds. So I wasn't paying attention to what other team was doing. It was mostly very Seahawks centric, which for me was great because you're just getting updates about all the guys that Seahawks selected and kind of the national thing. Once the pick is in, you get like 20 seconds of this is the guy who Seattle selected, and then it moves on. So to me it was a little bit refreshing. Like I didn't have to like worry so much about what the national media were saying, which was kind of different.
I don't have the time to really I can pay attention to what we do. I just don't have the time, or I don't think the brain capacity anymore to pay attention to what everybody else is doing at the same time.
For real. All right, well, let's get to the namesake of our podcast today. We are the Shaquem FanTable podcast today. So topic number 3, the Homer Corner. Is Shaquem Griffin the biggest story in the draft? And we're not talking about just Seattle. We're talking about the NFL draft as a whole. What do you think?
He's up there for sure. And I mean, obviously, from where we sit, he probably feels like the biggest story. I think probably Baker Mayfield going to Cleveland may be up there as well. Not as interesting or as impressive of a story, but it's probably making the news cycles just as much. But it definitely does seem like there was a big focus on Shaquem and quite a big celebration just in general of him being picked. And then I think the fact that he's coming to Seattle to play with his brother made it even bigger. So without having perused a ton of headlines, he definitely feels like the biggest story to come out of the draft.
Before I give my part, I want to ask you another follow-up question. What do you think it is about Shaquem's story that stands out? Is it the football? Is it the disability? Is it the fact that he's playing with his brother? If you were to select one of those 3 things, what do you think is the thing that makes it the biggest? Maybe not the biggest all forever, but what tips that scale?
Well, it's got to be him being able to get to the level he's at without having a left hand, right? Like, there's a lot of things in life that you can do if that's something that you're dealing with. If you had to have one of your hands amputated, it's going to be some limitations, but there's a lot of things that you can still accomplish. I don't know that most people would consider football to be one of them. So I think that the fact that he's gotten to where he has and the outlook of what people expected he would be able to accomplish from this point on, I think that's the biggest part of the story. And I think obviously having his brother Shaquille, them ending up on the same professional team after he refused to play for a school because his brother couldn't play there with him at a certain point, that just adds a lot of extra to the whole story. I think it makes people think about it differently and might touch your emotions a little stronger because of the way that their relationship is.
Yeah. I think Shaquem Griffin is the biggest story in the draft, and I'm saying it kind of like what you is. It's because he plays without a left hand, but he does so at a very different level. He was the conference's player of the year. His team went undefeated. He fought adversity. He fought injury, and he basically made himself as a standout NFL prospect. People always talk about grit and like, pull yourself by the bootstraps. You're responsible for all that you can do. in this particular case, that's 100% true with him, you know? Yeah, his brother didn't want to play for the University of Miami because they wouldn't give his brother an opportunity in Shaquille Griffin and Shaquem, but for the most part, everything he's done on his own. And it's an incredibly impressive story, not just from a performance standpoint, but the fact that he was the MVP of the bowl game, you know, that he played in. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But his story is the thing that the NFL, I think, covets. They want a story like this to come out because, one, it supersedes everything else. Not only does his story resonate with people that don't have a disability or are, you know, have both hands, but people that don't have those opportunities, that don't have the chance to be seen as a marquee individual in the limelight, they have something that they can hold on to and they can gravitate towards. And that's the thing, which is why I think he's going to be the biggest story, not just for this draft, but for this year, because the anticipation of what he could bring to the team, to the field, to the NFL as a brand, not only in Seattle, but just across the entire NFL, that will transcend. Because I was doing all my draft stuff off Twitter, all these stories about Shaquem and the people that were touched by his story or have a similar disability, they all shared great stories. And, you know, Shaquem would retweet them. He'd write to them. And it just kind of would build and build and build. So my feed was filled up with all of these things. And they're getting picked up by national media. You know, big news corporations are retweeting these stories because people are gravitating towards that. And I think that's what's going to make him the biggest story, not only in this draft, because he's been a constant story. You know, you look at major news and sports headlines, he's on there on every front page along with the Baker Mayfields, with the guys that are drafted number one overall because of his story, because of what people want him to do and how he potentially can succeed.
Yeah, and it's just a cool story, and it's one of those things where we kind of all had a feeling that the Seahawks were going to take him, but there's no way to know for sure, and oftentimes that feeling doesn't pan out.
Yeah.
And I think we were all kind of rooting for him there, especially that Saturday morning. We were sitting at the house. It was almost like watching a game. We were like, "Come on, take him!"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it was a good feeling, and it's a cool story, and I really look forward to seeing what he can do for us.
Yeah, exact same thing. It's like if there was a storybook ending to his college experience and getting drafted, him going to Seattle is probably one of the best stories anyone could ever think of. And it wasn't just like, oh, Seattle just kind of felt like, oh, we're going to throw this guy a bone. It's like, no, they actually saw value, and Seattle has been constantly linked to Shaquem, not only because his brother would like name drop him like every single chance he got to Pete and John, but his football skills, they always seem to be connected to Seattle, especially when he was not given a chance at the combine, had a chance to show up, and the things that he did, it's picture perfect, really.
Yep, exactly.
What do you envision that Shaquem's going to be? What kind of role do you see him filling out on this kind of a team, on the Seahawks?
Well, it sounds like he can be an automatic emotional leader. And I think that with the loss of Sherm, that's probably a position that's ripe for the taking. I assume that he's going to play linebacker.
Yeah.
He'd almost be kind of the Earl Thomas of linebackers, right? With that speed, with that sideline to sideline speed that he has.
Yeah.
He should be a guy that's able to make plays all over the field, and then potentially bail out other guys if they maybe aren't in position like they should be. He's the kind of guy with that kind of speed that can get from one point to another in a game changing amount of time. So
yeah, I think Pete.
Getting him on the field, even if it's just in certain downs, in certain packages, he's the kind of guy that you think would be able to come in and just help your defense make plays.
Yeah, I think that right now Pete Carroll has stated that he's going to be the backup to KJ. He's going to play the weak side linebacker position. I kind of see his biggest impact immediately is going to be definitely on special teams.
Well, yeah.
That just seems like the perfect place for him. He's going to have the speed. He's got the size that he is going to be able to really take advantage of that. So I think that is where he'll be his first impact. But I also definitely agree with what you're saying. Is like, situationally, he could come in and, if he can show off those pass rushing skills he displayed at college, that's something that Seahawks would love to have because they like guys that can play multiple positions. People were concerned about he may be a little bit undersized. He's not big enough, he's not small enough, depending on where you're placing him. But I think that versatility is kind of perfect for what Seattle's going to do. Put him with a Bobby, put him with a KJ, have him coached up by a former Super Bowl winning linebacker in Ken Norton Jr. And I think that's the perfect success and the perfect place for him to go. I'm really happy that he's on Seattle. And I definitely think that he's going to find his place here on the team, and who knows? Maybe he's a starter one day.
You never know.
Yeah. All right. What? Before last question on Shaquem. Do you have any particular stories that you heard over the weekend that you'd like to share, or that you thought were really amusing about Shaquem?
I guess that what I heard was that while the pick was made, he was in the bathroom, and that Shaquille ran in there and tackled him in the bathroom, which is pretty. It's interesting because I happened to also be in the bathroom while we were making our pick, and nobody came in and tackled me.
You just had your Twitter feed pull out, just seeing what was going on.
Yeah, I was on the chat with the boys and started yelling from the bathroom.
Nice. My favorite story is when Shaquem was interviewed. His brother was with him, and Shaquem was talking about the fact that he was going to get a free Xbox for coming to, a couple of these speaking engagements. And he said, oh yeah, like if someone's going to fly you out and they're going to give you a free Xbox to boot, who wouldn't do that? It then turned to Shaquille, and Shaquille said, oh yeah, I can't wait to play Xbox. He's moving in with me. It's going to be awesome. And the look on Shaquem's face when he was saying that was a perfect, bro, you have no clue what you're talking about. And it was the perfect, face that only a brother would give to his other brother about, I ain't sharing anything with you, which was perfect. If you haven't seen the clip, go to hawkscast.com. In the main Seahawks forum, there's talk about Shaquem. There's a lot of great input in there. There's a video in that thread that shows you the exact same video, and it's just got this awesome look on his face. So if you have a sibling, if you have a brother that ever wanted to play with your stuff and you didn't want anything to do with that, that's the face that Shaquem was making. Yeah, JG says Shaquem ain't sharing his Xbox, which is 100% true. But let's go to our last topic of the day. So topic number 4. Who do you think will make the biggest impact in week 1? So we're talking about just the drafted guys. We're not going to talk about undrafted free agents. But who of these 9 players do you anticipate will have the biggest impact on Seattle? And obviously we're kind of leaning towards more starters, but it's obviously free. What do you think, Zeb?
Well, my anticipation is tied directly to my hope. And my hope is that Rashad Penny is able to win that starting job and come in and make an immediate impact and bring us back to being a successful, consistent rushing football team. I guess along with that, I feel like Will Dissly has a good chance to kind of do the same thing, to just come in and win that job and make an immediate impact. And I think those two together, our offensive line has been pretty consistently not good over the last few seasons.
Yeah.
But if you kind of look at it right now, with the guys that we have penciled in to start and the couple of potential competitions, and you throw Rashad Penny, assuming that he's able to live up to his expectations, and Will Dissly in there with his blocking ability, things suddenly look pretty positive and optimistic as far as the running game goes. So I'm definitely putting all my eggs into the Rashad Penny basket and hoping he can come in and be the guy that we haven't had since Marshawn left.
Yeah, I think that's probably the safest bet if you're going to pick one player who will have the biggest impact. Because you were selected, I'm not going to repeat it. I'm going to say it's the punter, Michael Dickson. The reason why is because it's honestly his job to lose. You look at his rookie pay scale versus what the Seahawks would save if they let go of John Rand, who I love, one of my favorite Seahawks. He actually predates Pete Carroll and John Schneider. Think about that. But I think he has the greatest opportunity just because it's going to be his job to lose. You know, barring anything crazy happening, he's going to be the starter at the punting position. And I would never say that John has been bad, but I don't think that he has been as good as what the Seahawks needed. He was definitely in the bottom half in regards to punting, and we weren't really getting what we really needed out of him. And that's just due to the fact that he's a little bit older now, and you know the Ginja Ninja just maybe didn't have it as much. Yeah. But this guy, Michael Dickson, it seems like he's got all of the things that you want out of a punter. I'm hoping that he has an impact because that's a huge part of the game that I think we were missing. Like special teams seem to be subpar, so I think having a quality punter that can really put us in these positions where, you know, we pin him deep, maybe the defense holds, maybe only gives up 1 or 2 first downs and gets the ball back. We get the field position battles, and then, you know, maybe a Rashad Penny, maybe a Chris Carson, we can really pound that ball and put ourselves in position where we're going to chew up clock, move the ball down, and kind of wear them down for the long haul, and then let a guy like Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett really take over. That's the dream.
Yeah. I think it deserves to be mentioned that the punter, Michael Dickson, from Texas, is originally from Down Under.
He's an Aussie.
He is.
So
I think that's important.
It is to point out because there's going to be a lot of jokes about shrimp on the Barbie made at his expense, for sure.
Exactly.
JG just chimes in. He says, touching on last week, I didn't expect us to take an RB so high, so I think Penny will be both a starter for game 1 and the biggest impact from draft picks in week 1. So, JG, following up with you, you guys taking the easy route. That's the obvious choice. Sometimes you got to go below the surface and take the pick that no one's going to select, like saying Alex Magoo will be the starter in week 1.
Well,
that would be
Trey
awful.
Flowers will win the other job opposite Griffin as quarterback.
Yeah. Trey Flowers, that's a really interesting pick because that's like a classic Seattle move for 2 to 3 years down the road. He's a safety, really skinny, really tall, really long arms, really lean, which is kind of like the perfect, you know, Byron Maxwell, Richard Sherman, Deshaun Shedd kind of guy that's going to play like down the road, not a guy that they expect to start right away.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know how that guy played safety. He was 6'3" and like I think like $193, which seems way skinny for a safety.
He's slim, but he was tall and he was built. He just kind of looks like a skinny Cam.
Yeah, but Cam was like 6'3", 215, 210. I mean, that's just and Cam's a man's man.
The skinny part of it.
Like when I think about Cam Chancellor, you saw the Avengers, right? The new Avengers. Yep. So it happens early in the movie, so it's not much of a spoiler. But Thor is with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and one of the characters, Drax, just fanboys over Thor and talks about how handsome, how much of a specimen he is. That's Cam Chancellor, honestly.
Yeah, totally.
So that's our topics. So we're gonna move on here to our predictions. So I got a bunch of predictions. Some of them are kind of like not so much predictions, but just like questions, but they're simple answers. So, Zeb, Who's your rookie crush? Who is the one guy that you're crushing on right now, if so to say?
It's Magoo.
Magoo?
Yeah, for sure.
Which is funny because we actually texted that and we sent some inappropriate comments back and forth about his background. But he looks like kind of like a Colin Kaepernick kind of a guy, kind of tall, kind of a lanky stride, but mobile.
Yeah, I would say he's kind of the perfect combination of Peyton Manning, John Elway, Brett Favre, and Steve Young. Like you just take all their best qualities and put them together into one guy, and that's Alex Magoo.
And in the 7th round, no less.
Yeah.
Interesting stat about Magoo is that he led the league. He was second in college in kind of like throws on the run, so kind of like scramble drills, like plays that had broken down. Baker Mayfield was number 1, and Alex Magoo was number 2. So apparently he played on a really awful team, but that's one of the areas that he really excelled in.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to Florida International.
Yeah.
You're not playing against the best competition.
No.
I will say his highlight reel is impressive.
Yeah, it's all scramble, like off the ball, off the cuff kind of plays.
A lot of it. He shows... Look, he's got a big arm. That's obvious. And he can run. He's got some wheels on him. And he looks like he's got a lot of heart. Now how far those things translate in the league of, the 1,500 or however many people, best football players in the world, that if he can fit into that somewhere, I don't know, that maybe somewhere down the road. But just watching his highlight reel is pretty impressive. He was a cool kid to watch play football.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Highlight reels, they'll sell you real quick.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can't get sold on someone's highlight reel, then that's really sad.
Exactly.
My rookie crush got to be Shaquem. I mean, his story is just too much. It's a cool story. It's a cool guy. I mean, him being brothers with Shaquille and like them doing what brothers do. It's really funny to see. For those of you that don't have a brother, there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of things that you can kind of see your relationship with your own brother that you're seeing live with those two guys. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it's just adorable, isn't it? It's like,
yeah, that's probably the perfect word, right?
Yeah, and if you can't, as a man, if you can't accept that something's adorable, then maybe you need to look within.
Yeah, if you're not man enough to say something's adorable, you're not that tough of a man.
But that's exactly what it is. They're adorable.
How about this? Will you cry if Shaquem and Shaquill get announced on a starting defense coming out of the tunnel together?
I don't know. Like, I guess thinking about it, I don't think that I will, but if they were to do it right and they came out together and it was some kind of thing, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw myself get a little choked up.
Yeah.
Depending on the circumstance.
Yeah, I will probably cry. I'll shed a tear. I'll get teary-eyed at the minimum if they do anything. And I think, again, going back to why I think it's one of the biggest stories of the year, is there's so many things that the NFL has put out, that the league has put out, that the Seahawks have put out about these two guys and their relationship. A smart PR team, they're going to play well to that, and I think that having them come out of a tunnel together, that has me potentially bawling.
They could definitely make that a big moment that would probably get a lot of people emotional.
Yeah. Whose job is in jeopardy? Of any player on the Seahawks, who is at the biggest risk of losing playing time to one of these new players?
Well, I'll tell you what, Russell Wilson's been sweating ever since the 7th round.
Hey, they Russell Wilson's team has been getting a little antsy about the fact that the Seahawks are checking out quarterbacks. So,
honestly, I don't think many people's jobs are in jeopardy. But I do believe, I guess Chris Carson, if he's slated as our starting running back, he's probably the most in jeopardy of losing it to one of these starters. Other than like just like our biggest impact question, the punter Michael Dixon is probably going to swoop in and take that job from John Ryan. If is John Ryan still under contract at all?
I think the person who has the biggest job in jeopardy it might be Jermaine Ifedi. Not that I don't severely dislike Jermaine Ifedi. I acknowledge all of his flaws, and I kind of think that this is the year for him to turn it around. But he's going to be competing against a guy that was basically said, solid tackler, bad athlete, which is kind of like the opposite of what Tom Cable has kind of selected and the Seahawks have selected in the past. So this guy who's played tackle for a high-quality program like Ohio State, I think there's a really, really good opportunity that there's going to be really strong competition at that position. But yes, the easy picks are punter.
I like your thinking there, and I think that would be really good. But I think Ifedi's job as a starter on this offensive line is probably safe this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprised, but I think that the competition aspect, I would like to see that, and maybe that's me a little bit of projection there. All right, whose jersey would you buy of all of these rookies? Not ironically, just who would you pick?
I wouldn't buy a rookie's jersey at this point at all. I'm not buying any of these guys' jersey. Depending how things go throughout the season, that could change. I definitely picked me up a Russell Wilson jersey in December of 2012.
Yeah.
But that's also the last jersey I bought. So
okay, that's
one
fair.
One of these guys would have to really impress me to get me to go out and buy one of his jerseys. If I had to guess, again, I'm going Penny.
All right. I think that's probably the safest bet. If I were to get a jersey, it would probably be a Penny jersey, just because, again, I love his highlight reel. It's kind of like, hey, this is the player that the Seahawks are missing. I will say that I'm a little disappointed that Seahawks have not released the rookie jersey numbers yet. I don't know what the holdup is. Maybe they're not sure how they're going to do Shaquille and Shaquem Griffin with the nameplate. I mean, it should be pretty obvious. One's going to be 26 and one's going to be a totally different number. But I would probably lean towards the Penny, but maybe in the future, depending how they play out, I could definitely see myself getting another jersey, maybe a Shaquem, depending on what number he has. Because if it's a terrible number, I'm not getting it, regardless.
Yeah, if he comes out and he's getting playing time and he's making plays, I'd expect a lot of people to buy his jersey.
I think people would. I mean, I'd get a Shaquille Griffin if possible too, but we'll see. All right. Let's see. You already said this, but which running back starts? You're expecting it to be Penny in week 1. Yeah. I think Chris Carson will probably start week 1. I don't know. Have you seen the picture that Seahawks posted of him on Twitter?
No, I don't think so.
He's looking tough. He's wearing a hoodie. He's all like decked out and like just ready to go. Check it out on Seahawks on their Twitter, or look for our Twitter. We retweeted it at Seahawks Podcast. But Chris Carson, I mean, I think he sees a running back drafted. He knows he's a 7th round pick, so he's got to really produce in order to keep a starting job. But I think he still gets a gig over Penny in week 1.
I hope. I don't care who starts as long as it's the better guy. I hope that they have a real legitimate competition during preseason and just give the best guy the job. They're obviously both going to get touches. We're not just going to have one guy running the ball all the time. So
yeah,
I hope they both get a chance to win the job, and even so, we'll probably see them both significantly as long as they stay healthy.
Yeah. All right. Last prediction for the night. Who has more rushing yards? A rookie running back, a veteran running back, or Russell Wilson at the end of the year?
I'm going to stick with my guy, man. I'm going Penny. I'm all in on Penny.
Yeah, I mean, it's the easy answer, but...
is it?
It kind of is. I mean, he's a first round pick. He's going to get the most opportunity. I think I probably have to agree with you and go Penny. I can't find any other way that it's anyone else. I mean, unless everyone gets injured, it can't be Russell Wilson again. It just can't. As much as I love Wilson and what he brings to the table, like, he shouldn't have to do that.
No, we don't want that from him.
Right. But yeah, those are our predictions. Those are our podcasts. Again, we are the Shaquem FanTable podcast for today. But Zeb, thank you so much for coming out and always doing the podcast. Shout-outs.
Check out triplebpodcast.com. We're giving away tickets to a metal show coming up on June 4th at the Hawthorne Theater. If you're in Portland, listening to the show for a chance to win those tickets. I won't mention the names of the bands playing because I don't remember them because they're all weird and difficult.
Really selling it. Thank you to JG for checking us out. Maddie, sorry that we couldn't work it out again. Ross, stay safe. Check us out at Facebook at Seahawks FanTable. We're on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast. You can also go to our website, which is hawkscast.com. Got a forum, a lot of great stuff out there. Really excited for this draft. I think the last thing that I want to say about the draft, and Zeb, I'll get a last word from you on the draft, is I'm excited for what they did because I think they went in with a very specific plan of saying we want to address our offense in a particular way, and I think they got players to address those needs.
Yeah, they drafted in a sort of commitment to a culture shift, and I'm glad they've made that commitment, and I think it's the right direction to go.
Agreed. For Zeb, I am Sam. We are the Shaquem FanTable podcast today. JG, thank you for checking us out. Have a great night, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.